Hi everybody, Michael Vlasto, I'm Danuta and we're in my living room with Wormwood. Yes, so we're going to be talking about preparing for pilgrimage today. We kind of had a pretty full-on Ayurvedic treatment this morning called a Shirodhara, and Michael's been asleep pretty much ever since. So yeah, we're not our normal completely effervescent self, so do mind with us. But we have been talking a lot about how we prepare for pilgrimage. So Michael, you have a thing that you do when you prepare for pilgrimage. I mean, when you pack for going on a trip or doing a pilgrimage, you've got a packing routine and stuff like that you do. But you also have things you do before, like esoteric, like spiritual things that you do before you get ready to go for a pilgrimage, as you're getting ready to go for a pilgrimage. Do you want to talk about any of those?
Of course. If I'm going on a pilgrimage, i.e. a journey, on whatever level that journey is, I have to ask, where am I going? Why am I going there? Who is going to help me on that journey? Is it a journey for my own ego, or is it a journey for the greater good of the world? Yes, I have to go to the sort of certain places that I have at home and center myself and ask permission so that the connections will sort of be open, or like the roadways will be open all the way there and all the way back.
So are there particular places, like you live on a property up in the rainforest near Coffs Harbour. So are there certain places on your property, certain trees, certain animals that you speak to? And are there certain sort of spiritual entities you communicate with that you're happy to talk to us about?
Of course. From the point of view of being a Northern Hemisphere person who's been given specific permission by the Aboriginals of the area, and also greater Aboriginals for things that I've done to help them to live on the land where I do, the peacefulness of that means that you have to respect everything, but in that respect for everything, you can't go. We've got over 1,000 acres there, so you can't go wandering around every inch of 1,000 acres. You have to go to specific places, and how you find specific places is repetition and recognition of the feeling of those places on that repetition. So you might find you always come to this tree. There's an old tree down in the forest. Our land was first logged in the 1920s, when they were after the cedar and everything. And there's an old stump down deep in the rainforest that's been cut, and it's like a great big throne. So I go and sit on that and ask, permission there. And then I go on to other places, like down to the river, and where there are old rocks. You come there are places on the river where you come to a rock, and you know that people have come up and rubbed that rock for thousands of years. It's a sort of magnetic connection, so you find yourself rubbing it too. And so I go to places like that are trees, I go to places like that are rocks. It's very simple. It's just the basic for esoteric respect. Like I go and sit with my feet in the water. I go and submerge myself in the water in pools where people have gone for swims for thousands of years. I go to the circle, and on top of that, on the practical level, I diary as well. Like, I go to my circle and I sit in my circle and I say, why am I doing this? Is this just me being bored with sitting quietly, or is there a deeper reason? And when I'm in my circle, I can then ask specific animals that are friends to me, people, spirits that I connect with, and I listen to their answers. And sometimes they say, no, this is rubbish, it's bullshit, like just go and make some bread, go and pull the weeds up on around the circle. Or other times they say, no, you must go, you're going to meet people, you're going to grow. It's for the good of helping, keep this land. Australia is an island, so, on esoteric levels, it's an easy place to protect and keep sacred and special, but we have to do it. If energies are always taking from it and taking away to other countries, then it will be depleted. So as a balance to that, of course we have to go and make places strong. And the land, like the people, like to know that you care. And for them to know that you care, you go and you tell them that you care.
So part of the going on a pilgrimage is actually being called to a pilgrimage by, when you're doing these processes, it's negotiating a path, but also assessing whether or not you're being called to go, in a sense, rather than just sitting or determining for yourself, making a willful incursion upon the path. You actually ask for an invitation to go along the way, even if the way is highly personal, highly your own spiritual path, your own emotional or intellectual path. You still approach it with a level of respect and a level of I think honor. Just honoring the way that you're about to walk upon is really important. And so for me, I do very much like what Michael does. I don't have 1,000 acres, but I do live in a space, and there's places at beaches near me that I go visit and sit at. There's points and walks that near me that I can go along and be at. But also we've been building a circle garden in the yard for a few years, and Michael's been doing a lot of the planting for that and maintaining it. It's becoming its own thing. We've been building this grove of trees and foresting the yard, and that's been a thing. And so I go into that and move through that. Also, the other thing that I do, and I know you do the same thing. I know you do it too. The other thing that I do is I actually go out to my circle, and Michael has a circle up where he is that he's built over 40 years. I go out to the circle and see what the circle's doing and what it's saying, what part of the circle's blooming, what part of the path is growing, what part of the way, and what's growing in it. Like, it's really interesting. Like, my yard has become a ramshackle prompting of medicinal herbs that, one, I didn't know were herbs because I thought they were weeds, but they're new ones, things that I've never seen. And it's they kind of speak to me and they say, hey, we're showing up. This means that you know, this is the part of your life that you're probably looking at. And we had this thing where we had this huge crop of plantain, like very large crop, that came up. And plantain used to be known as way bread. It was the thing that you could eat while you're walking along the way. It has a lot of healing properties. It's got a lot of properties to do with, you know, stopping blood, stopping pain, anesthetic, analgesic sort of properties. But it also has this thing of being, the heads are really high in protein apparently, and high in a good grain. And you can actually chew on the leaves and bits as you're walking. They can keep you alive. Hence way bread, you know, kind of like in Lord of the Rings, actually, the way bread. Anyway, so, but that came up like just before we started going on pilgrimage. Didn't we have that huge crop? You couldn't see anything for the plantain. But then after we went on pilgrimage and came back, it all became go-to cola. It all became, you know, pennyroyal. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, go to cola and pennyroyal. So all to do with memory and with, you know, being aware and all that sort of stuff. So that it's like the property tells us and speaks to us when we're preparing to go, to say, hey, this is the time to travel. This is the time to take stock of where you've traveled. And I know that Michael really looks for those signs as well before and during and, you know, as you go. Yeah.
Of course. They're farming consultants now who make big money with looking after big cattle stations, cotton farms, small biodynamic farms, anywhere with land. Like one of the main components now of getting your land to be productive and healthy is to bring in the soil consultants who do exactly that. They read the waves and the pictures on the land. They read the, and through that they're reading the minerals, they're reading needs of the land, they're reading what weeds are coming up, which are not weeds at all. They're just useful plants that are helping address the balance. And if you incorporate that into yourself, then, you know, like we're full of weeds, you know, that are helping us sort of incorporate and balance.
Well, the whole you know, gastrobiome and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The internal flora and fauna of our bodies are really important in doing that.
Yes.
But the thing is, so in one way we read in order to prepare to go on pilgrimage, we read what's going on outside. But in another sense, the outside world is kind of reading us and placing us in a position to say, you know, we're telling you this is a good time for you to travel, a good time for you to move. Can you, you know? And so you get that holistic feeling that stuff's coming up, things are starting to foster, and you can achieve something on this path at this time. Because, I mean, as you know, you can go on a trip and really you've gone on a trip. But when you go on a pilgrimage, it's really something a little bit different, isn't it?
Mm. I mean, there are more hints. Like you read the plants that are here that are allies to you, and then you recognize them as you're going along your journey. And you realize, you know, like when you start bringing instinct into it, and so inner potentials and everything, I must stop here. Oh, I must go to the left. But the road I was meant to be going on, which I know that from the map, it goes straight ahead, but something stops you and you go to the left and you discover something that's beautiful. But as a lot of the people say who've been good at this and are doing it all their life, is that the training is to recognize the subtle. And when you recognize the subtle, you can stop and you can digest it before going on, rather than just walking on, not noticing, but you get to the sign that says, I've arrived, say it, Uluru, if you're going to central passport control for Australia, which it is. If you're going there, fine, you've got there, but how have you got there? Have you got there through the right windy roads that are beneficial to you? Or have you got there through the force of your own will, which just frog marched you in there, and then you climbed to the top of the rock, or did some similar ridiculous thing that the signs say you shouldn't do?
So we've talked a lot about looking at the signs and understanding the subtle and hearing the subtle cues. I was thinking maybe we should talk a little bit about what we do to become more aware of the subtle, because we did the Shirodhara today, and you've been involved with Ayurvedic medicine for a long time before I ever met you. And a lot of those practices, a lot of the Ayurvedic practices have to do with strengthening the subtle body and making you more capable of being aware of the subtle. So, and then we've got the practices within our Druid training that do the same thing. So there's many traditions that talk about becoming more aware, and strengthening our ability to handle those subtle senses and be able to read those subtle pathways that we all engage in. So we've got a couple of minutes. Maybe you can say a couple that really are powerful for you, and maybe I can say a couple that are powerful for me.
All right.
In relation to pilgrimage, Michael.
Yes, from the point of view of pilgrimage, myself, my practice with nature, like Dad was a farmer, I've lived on the land all my life. But from that point of view, nature is kind to you. So it's a nice day, you go and you lie on the ground in the sun and just absorb and give yourself permission to open. And that is one of the prime exercises. And it might just seem like you're having a nice time, but in actual fact, what it's doing is preparing the bodies. It's preparing the physical body to have strong connection with the emotional body. It's preparing the emotional body to have strong connection with the mental body, and the mental body to have strong connection with the spirit body. But in actual fact, what you're doing, you're not doing Hindu siddhi, like where you've got to completely focus on one thing for 1,000 years or something. No, you're just lying and enjoying the sun. You're sitting quietly with your back up against a tree. You're looking at a rock and just rubbing your hand on it. It's the little gentle things, but I've found that you must never underestimate the little things, because what seems like a little pleasant thing in this world is bloody enormous in other worlds.
So I think for me, one of the things to really understand about pilgrimage is a big point of pilgrimage is actually to build this awareness. Part of it is to become aware of yourself. You kind of leave home so that you're alone with yourself outside your normal environment in some cases, I think in most cases. And that kind of quietens everything down. I mean, you're not pulled by your everyday workaday stuff, and you just get to be yourself because there's nothing else to be. You're only you, so you get to be you. Whereas when we're in our normal environments, we got to do stuff, and we can get trapped in the consciousness of just doing the stuff that we've got to do and thinking about stuff that we've got to do. So for me, one of the big things about pilgrimage is leaving stuff behind, just leaving it behind. And one of the, a different activity that Michael has, like not everybody feels comfortable going and lying on the grass outside in the garden. Not everybody has a garden, but a practice that a lot of people can have access to is like yoga nidra, just lying on the floor in your room. There are guided yoga nidras that you can get, that you can buy. But yeah, so you can lie on the ground, and it's a sense of being aware of you in space, you in the room, you on the floor, being comfortable with the floor, just holding you up and holding your weight, and feeling a sense of safety in your physicality and in the physicality of the world around you. And it takes about 10 minutes, maybe 20 minutes. And, you know, you can download it free from YouTube. There's heaps of those sorts of things. Anyway, this is just a bit of a chat about preparing for pilgrimage. We really hope you have loved what we've been talking about. If you'd like to hear more about it, you can go over to Druid Pilgrim Facebook group, where we are doing two things. One, we're preparing for the pilgrimage. We're going to the OBOD assembly in April. But the other thing we're doing over there is we're doing a reading of the Mabinogion over a year, so taking bits at a time and traveling through that. And after having successfully done this, hopefully Michael will do it again. Yay! Anyway, so it's been lovely. Thank you very much for speaking with us, and we'll chat again later.
One more, can I say one more thing? You learn to say thank you. When you get to where you've said that you're going to go for the pilgrimage, you say thank you, and you say it on a deep level.
Yes. Thank you, Michael, for joining us today. Bye.